The Kansas Sports Hall of Fame, such an elite and amazing club. Legendary coaches and players from Snyder to Sayers, a Little Sproles, and one Big Dub. What's up, Wayne? Give it up for Big Dub, everybody. Since the early 1960s, this group has been growing with more stars added each year. They come from all over the state. Kansas's all-time greats can be found in the hall right here. We gather tonight to celebrate another iconic class. This diverse group of 10, they all love to win and kick some serious field goals. We've got all kinds of Hornets, plus a gorilla, a Negro Leagues Baseball star as well, Wichita State Shockers, and Kansas Jayhawkers, all with a story to tell. We'll live life in the fast lane with a NASCAR star and talk baseball sabermetrics too. All legends, no sleepers, even a groundskeeper inducted before this night is through. In this group alone, we've got numerous champs of Super Bowls, World Series, and Final Fours. You see, in the Sunflower State, our star power is great. What a night we have in store. So what do you say we dive right in and introduce you to them all? Our magnificent 10, all about to go in, forever enshrined in the hall. All right. It really is a group of heavy hitters, 1 through 10, and I want to point out as we get started, we're going to do this in alphabetical order tonight. So I didn't want you to think the Kansas Jayhawk guy stacked the deck with his favorite, saving the best for last. We're literally going to go B through W, and that means we're going to kick it all off here tonight with a NASCAR superstar by the name of Clinton Edward Bowyer. Clint Bowyer began racing in Kansas in 1985 by racing motocross. He won over 200 of those races during his career. He began racing stock cars and modifieds in 1996. He signed with Richard Childress Racing in 2003, where he went on to finish second in the Xfinity Series in 2005, third in 2006, and he won the Xfinity Series in 2008. He began full-time NASCAR Cup Series racing in 2006. His series record and career record included 3 wins in the Truck Series, 10 top 10 finishes, 8 wins in the Xfinity Series with 116 top 10 finishes, and in the NASCAR Cup Series, 10 wins, 226 top 10 finishes in over 500 all-time races. Clint currently works for Fox Sports as a NASCAR analyst. He's a member of the Talladega Walk of Fame from 2022, and tonight he goes in his home state's Sports Hall of Fame. Put your hands together for new Hall of Famer, Clint Bowyer.
Damn, he makes it sound easy, huh? It's like he gets paid to do that. I tell you what, after what I get paid to do now is talk about cars going in circles, but not public speaking, which when I'm done with this, you'll realize why I got paid to wear a helmet for a living. So, man, first and foremost, I want to thank the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. What an honor and a privilege to be a part of this, representing, your home state. It all started right here in Kansas, and what a ride it's been. Been a lot of fun, a lot of great memories, and man, we've accomplished a lot. It's neat that 4 of us tonight all have Emporia ties. Pretty cool. I've watched both girls, Emily and Tara, play ball. Dad's always had, season tickets down there at Emporia State, so watched you girls. And Jesse, the Nelson family, we all grew up together. I think you even taught me how to drive, right? You're probably responsible for some of this. So most of you know me as the guy that raced, on Sundays in NASCAR. But I want to tell you a little bit about my Kansas story and, how it all happened. I grew up racing motocross on 2 wheels. That was my first love. Now, mind you, if it burnt gas, we were in. That's what we did. We burnt gasoline and we raced. If there was a starting grid, we were going to be on it. But my first love was on 2 wheels. I raced from when I was about 5 to 14 years old. I was a good regional racer. We raced all over the state of Kansas, all over the Midwest, but just wasn't good enough to really be a professional motocrosser. My brother, however, He was. My older brother, Andy, he went on and raced in a professional level of motocross for several years, moved to California and worked in that industry for a long time. So here I am, 16 years old, a kid working part-time in a Goodyear store, realizing I'm not going to make it as a motocrosser. That dream's gone. What the hell am I going to do, right? Lost, 16-year-old kid. I worked at this Goodyear store. My boss, James Derrick, he starts building this Chevelle in the back of this Goodyear store, and here I am, a punk kid, hanging out after work, having fun, and next thing you know, we roll down the road to Thunderhill Speedway. There I watched a good race, a good fight, and a hell of a party afterwards. I found my career in NASCAR. That's where it all started, the love for it. But my father owned a towing service in Emporia. We had a lot of, business acquaintances, and through that, I had a lot of opportunities to have good equipment and good connections and people that helped me throughout the years in my racing career. My first car, believe it or not, was an impounded Chevette. Not a Chevelle, as it was in that brochure, a Chevette. That means it was a 4-cylinder. That means it was a turd, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It was so embarrassing, but I was so proud of it. I think the first race, Mom and I went, we pulled a rollback out of Dad's fleet in a towing service. We rolled down to Yates Center, Kansas, and I think it still had the radio in it the first night we raced. I realized I was a little in over my head. I went back and pulled the radio out of it, got to work on it a little bit more, got a little bit faster, and the only trophy I ever won in that car was a rollover trophy. Remember we rolled over that night? It was so slow, guys. When this thing rolled over, I remember they made me put the battery in the passenger side of the car in a boat. I went to Blue Stem Farm and Ranch Supply. So anybody been in Emporia, they know where to go. Blue Stem Farm and Ranch Supply. I went there and bought this battery container, and I'll never forget that battery container because it didn't do its job. It was a marine battery container. When I went to flipping, it was such a slow flip that something kept hitting me in the head. And I'm realizing, what in the hell is that? And I finally opened my eyes, and it's the battery of the car hitting me in the head, slinging in the inside of that thing. So here I am flipping down the back straightaway, holding the battery next to me. Never forget those. Those are the ones that taught you something. But as I said, my older brother Andy, he went on to race pro and kind of went away to the West Coast racing. And that's when old Dad, he started showing up, and my business picked up in a big way. We got an old 78 Camaro, and God, I was proud of that thing. It was a lot of fun. Those were the glory days, so to speak. It really was. We raced all over Kansas, Thunder Hills, I mentioned, Humboldt, Yates Center, Junction City. Went down to the Hutch State Fair one night. That was a lot of fun for a big 10,000 to win. I'll never forget that one. Belleville, High Banks. Right here, 81 Speedway in Wichita, a lot of good memories over there. Heartland Park and Lakeside was kind of my home track, Lakeside Speedway in Kansas City. But then from there, you're racing a street stock, starting to win a little bit, you're right, getting a little bit confident. And what's the next step? What do? Well, we went and bought a modified. Went down the road and Dad bought Tom Charles, a legendary guy who won the track championship. Seemed legit, right? And that's the guy's equipment you want to buy. We go buy this modified, and let me tell you something. That led to a lot of losing and a lot of learning. That's what we did, a lot of learning. But finally, as it always works out, you keep digging and you keep your head down and working hard. And we finally started winning, and we won a lot. We won all over Kansas. We won track championships at Thunder Hill, that first race where it all started. Heartland Park, Topeka, when they built that track. Lakeside Speedway. And once again, you find yourself at another crossroads. What next? What do we do from here? Never forget this to the day I die. True story. We're at Lakeside Speedway. The old man, he's got Elvis blaring just like he always did. Let me tell you something. If we won, everybody hated it because he had Elvis wide open in the trailer, and you knew that we won that night. So he's blaring it, and I was signing autographs out in front of the car, and these three guys walk up. And this is a true story. These three guys walk up and introduce themselves and ask if they build a race car, if I drive it over an I-70 on an asphalt track. All of my racing up to this point was on dirt. These three guys were the three guys that helped Jamie McMurray move on to the truck series of NASCAR into the Xfinity series and on in. to the Cup Series from Joplin, Missouri. That's when 2002 happened, and that was the turning point in my career. They built this asphalt car. We didn't really know much of it, but man, it was a good-looking ride. We went over to I-70, won the first race together, won the championship that year at I-70, and could not believe it. First time we was ever on asphalt, had no clue what we were doing, but we was pretty fast and had a good hot rod. We won again over at Lakeside on the dirt on the other side of the river there, and 2002 was a big regional, season for me. That was the turning point, and the reason it was is finally under the NASCAR banner in the weekly racing series, you're starting to get a name for yourself. A lot of write-ups, a lot of things like that. That point at the end of the year, we've got a Sonic drive-in sponsor, a family friend, Craig Abbott from Iola, Kansas, comes along. He ran the Sonic drive-ins regional co-op and sponsored our car. 2003, we ended up touring all over the Midwest. Had a lot of losing and a lot of learning again. But at the end of the year, we got an opportunity to run a race. We ran this race that was the race of my career. It was an ARCA race in Nashville, and that's where the kid from Kansas finally got seen. It was on Speed Channel that day, and lo and behold, Pocono, as everybody knows, it always rains in the Pocono. Pocono was rained out. And Richard Childress was on his couch with his feet kicked up. The Richard Childress that owned Dale Earnhardt's cars, that won all of Dale Earnhardt's races, that Richard Childress was sitting on his couch watching that day and watched the kid from Kansas all but win that race. A few weeks later, I'm sitting in a Ford body shop, probably trying to figure out, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, usually that time, we was figuring out who's buying the beer for that evening. But my cell phone rings, and it's a little lady from North Carolina, and she asked me if I'd take a phone call from Richard Childress. Of course, you're looking over your shoulder. You're wondering, this isn't a funny joke. This is a prank, and all your buddies at work put them up to this. It wasn't. I hung up on her. Phone rings back from this 336 area code, and I recognize that voice this time. It was Richard Childress. He's laughing. He said, "Did you really just hang up on my secretary?" I said, "Sir, I had no idea. I thought this was a joke," and it wasn't a joke. The next day, I was headed to North Carolina, and I ain't been back since. It was the call that changed your life. You hear of those stories, and it happened to mine. So, man, I was afforded an opportunity to race all over the country in the biggest stage of what I loved, in front of millions of fans. Had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and met a lot of great people over the years. Represented a lot of big brands of the world, brands that I was really proud of, and something that was, to this day, you still have, business partnerships with and things along the way. I was able to win in all 3 series of NASCAR. It was something I was proud of. We won with all 3 manufacturers. That was kind of fun. I was kind of the mutt. I was all over the place looking, if we had a sponsor, we'd go to a different manufacturer. So I represented Toyota, Ford, and Chevrolet and won with all of them. And, still to this day, have a lot of fun with each one of those and some opportunities. Speaking of opportunities, when you're given an opportunity like this in professional sports and you make a good living and you have an impact, you have an opportunity to do something with it. That's when we came back. And, I'm very proud of NASCAR for their charitable efforts. Everybody, my peers, NASCAR Foundation, they've always instilled that from day one in any driver that comes along. So, you want something meaningful. Well, how do you do that? Where does that go? I don't really like, a national thing where you just put a bunch of money into something. You never know where it went. So we came back. We founded the 79 Fund within Emporia Community Foundation. We built a community center in Emporia and being able to give back to a lot of different causes, starting with kids first and foremost. Have a board member that's on that, Sarah, here tonight. And the other thing that's pretty proudful is we're a business owner in Kansas. I live in North Carolina, but partners with Sean Tarbell and the Davis Moore Group here in Wichita, and we have a Toyota and a Dodge dealership back home in Emporia where it all started. So that's something that's, a lot of pride goes into that. It was one of Casey and I, my brother's first job. So to be able to have that business together is a lot of fun. So I appreciate you being here, Sean. I tell you what, there's a new Bowyer in town making a new name for himself. My son Cash. He's yeah. He's racing cars now, and let me tell you something. It's just like it all started. It's like a miniature cup race. He's lined up next to Kyle Busch's son and Kyle Larson's boy and whoever else shows up. We're ready to take them on, aren't we? You know, racing's been a family sport. It really has. It takes an army, and we always did it together. That was something that was, very proudful. Mom and Dad always showing up in the bus. My brother Casey running the day-to-day operations. It's always been a family business, and it still is to this day. So, Laura and I, we're raising our family in North Carolina. It's kind of fun to share this Kansas City, North Carolina deal with old Roy Williams. You know, we've been a lot of days where old Clint was pretty lippy in North Carolina, and them Jayhawks was whooping on him, but I had to be quiet, need a little crow every now and then too. So neat to share some laughs with him and finally get to meet him and put a face with that. In closing, just the next chapter, what happens after a career like this, you don't know, I got an opportunity to work for Fox Sports, and it's a dream job. It really is a lot of fun. There's no public speaking or anything like this, thank God. But we get up there and use your life lessons of what you learned in racing and still connected to the sport and share the sport you love and sell it to the fans. Watch Talladega today and watch Dale Jr. and Jeff Burton and those guys. And, man, I was like, get out of the way. I can't wait for our season. We'll be starting the Daytona 500, and I can't wait for it. So, listen, guys, I appreciate it. This means a lot. It's an honor, and appreciate everybody having us, and thanks a lot.
Clint Bowyer, everybody. First Hall of Famer of the night.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony is made possible in part by the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Boston Red Sox, Kansas State Bowling Proprietors.
Let's keep the Emporia theme coming here and next bring up Emily Bloss Carpenter. Emily was an all-state basketball player for Wellsville High School, went on to be a 4-year letter winner in basketball at Emporia State. A 2001 All-American selection, along with being named the Division II National Player of the Year and MIAA MVP as well. She won the MIAA Ken Jones Award in 2001 as the league's top female athlete. She led the Lady Hornets to 4 straight MIAA regular season and conference tournament titles, 4 straight NCAA Division II tournament appearances as well. She finished her career as the school leader all-time in points and steals and was 4th in school history in rebounds. 3-time academic All-American selection. She was also an All-American selection in track in 1998 as part of the 1600 relay team. She's a member of the ESU Athletics Hall of Fame, the MIAA Hall of Fame, and tonight she goes in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. Please put your hands together for Emily Bloss Carpenter.
Good evening. I've got some big shoes to fill. I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you as much fun stories as Clint, but I will try. Thank you so much for the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame and the committee that selected me. It is an honor, and congratulations to my fellow inductees. When I received the phone call from Jordan, I was actually on family vacation, and so you're just, out by the pool with all your cousins and kids, and all of a sudden you're getting told you're going to be inducted into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame, and you're like, what? How many years have I been out? You think you've won all the awards that you could, but what an honor. I was never one that focused on personal success or my personal stats in basketball. I just wanted to win. I didn't care about me, I just wanted to win. So tonight I would like to thank a few of those that are in the room tonight that played a role in my success. I have to start with my family. My parents, Ron and Jan Bloss, are over here tonight. My very first thoughts of the game of basketball came from watching my dad play basketball outside in the front yard. He put this really amazing basketball goal in. I can and he would play with other men, and high schooler kids would come over and play, and it was just in our driveway. And then at night, we would go and watch him play in a men's league in Ottawa, Kansas. My mom would load us all 5 of us kids up, and we'd watch him. I was the second oldest of 5 kids, and my dad instilled in us work ethic. So we would always do our best at all times. You always finish what you start. We were never allowed to quit. Being part of a team meant commitment. I remember my dad always telling me that I was a reflection of my family, and that no matter where I was or what I was doing, to take pride in it, and to always be respectful of others. My mom was the one who drove me to all of my basketball games, and there was a lot. And now that I'm driving my own kids to basketball games, I'd like to thank her for driving me to all my basketball games. And if you knew my mom, she actually liked taking me to basketball games because it made her get away from the other 4 kids, and she was able to take a big bag of books, and she'd sit in the bleachers and she would read. She would watch me, don't get me wrong, she would watch me, but she actually had some alone time and got to read. But she instilled in me the importance of reading my Bible daily. That was the first thing I would do when I wake up in the morning and come upstairs. She'd be sitting at the dining room table, reading her Bible. And anytime I would have a problem in life, I would, of course, go to my mom, and I would seek help or advice. And the first things out of her mouth would be always, have you prayed about it? It's the simplest thing we can do, and it's never the first thing that we do. So thank you, Mom, for showing me how important God's word is and how prayer is in my life. Speaking of family, my youngest brother, Austin, is here, and so I have to, and his wife, Danny. Thank you guys for coming. I have to give him a quick shout out. So Austin was quite younger than us. He was the youngest of 5. So he was probably the one that got to come to most of my games since he wasn't in high school to play sports yet. So he would come to my home games at Emporia State, and he would entertain the crowd by doing the worm on the sideline during timeouts. And fans would actually toss him money. So it was a pretty good gig for him. He'd come to some games, earn a couple bucks, and of course make the crowd crazy. So I'd also like to thank my high school coach, Richard Ebel. He's here tonight. He played a major role in my basketball and track success. Coach Ebel, better known as Ebe by all the students at Wellsville High School, knew me better than I knew myself. And when it came to competing, he was my biggest cheerleader all through high school and college. I was fortunate enough to be coached by him, not only in basketball, but in track and cross country. So that's probably why he knew me so well. He pushed me not only to be a better athlete, but a better person. He would send me postcards. I've never had a coach like this. He sent me postcards and letters during the summertime, encouraged me to work hard in my off season, always telling me that hard work and dedication will pay off. In one of those letters, actually I have it right here, my junior year, so 26 years ago. I don't know if you remember this letter, this card that you sent me, but in that card, it said, I want you to work hard on attitude and your relationships. These 2 things are more important than skills. And when you're a junior in high school, you're thinking, what are you talking about? Like, I want to play basketball. I want to compete. I want to win. Boy, was he right. Life is all about attitude and relationships. Having a positive attitude and building relationships will bring you success. So thank you, Ebe, for pouring your time and your heart into me as an athlete. I really do appreciate that. I would also like to thank my college coach, Brandon Schneider, who's here tonight, who is now the current head women's coach at the University of Kansas. So going from Emporia to KU, that's pretty great. Brandon, thank you for recruiting me to come to play at Emporia State and for coaching me through my college. You've instilled me a level of toughness in me, mentally and physically. Thank you for running one of the best full court presses in the nation. And for creating the play box specifically for me, because most of my points came from steals and beating the big post players, as you can tell. I can't compete with the big girls. I'm tall, skinny, and fast. So I'd take them off the first dribble and take them from the free throw line to the basket. You never settled. After every game, won or lost, you focused on how we could get better. You didn't just want to win, you wanted to dominate. And you wanted to dominate defensively. Defense wins games. I believe that was on the back of our t-shirts. And boy, did we have fun, not only winning games, but we dominated defensively. You actually made playing defense fun. I actually enjoyed defense probably more than I enjoyed offense in college. This next thank you is probably the most deserved one. All awards that student athletes win throughout their college career would not happen without the hard work and amazing media relations team. They are the ones that get our names and accomplishments out so that we can even be considered for awards like this. I would like to thank Don Wiest, who's here tonight, for working so hard for Emporia State student athletes. Your job requires long, late hours and working weekends. But when you're good at what you do and love what you do, you make it look easy. I made myself look good on the court and in the classroom, but you made me look good on paper. And you promoted the heck out of me in order to earn awards I received. Without your support, hard work, and dedication to student athletes like myself, we would not have received half the honors I did during my time at Emporia State. So on behalf of myself and all the student athletes, thank you so much for your hard work. Basketball is a team sport. It's family, it's community. And I'm lucky enough to be inducted tonight alongside one of my teammates, Tara Holloway. Let's just say I prayed every day that I would be on the same team during practices so I would not have to guard her. Tara, you made me a tougher player. Your intensity on the court made me step up my own game. I had a battle for every bucket and every rebound against you in practice. And every day I had bruises to show for it. Two other of my former teammates are here tonight that I want to thank also, Allie Sprague and Dina Holloway. You girls will always be Sprague and Holloway. I know you guys are married, but that's just what you guys are to me. What I loved about our team at Emporia was that we all played an important role in each other's games. Each screen set, each ball passed was for the team. We knew we needed each other to win, especially my senior year when we only had 8 players. That was a rough year, but we succeeded and we played together. Lastly, I'd like to thank my husband, Derek. Thank you for being by my side my entire college career and still today. You have given me 4 wonderful children that we now get to go watch play sports together. To my kids, look up here. Remember, attitude and relationships are key to life. You are a reflection of your parents, your grandparents, your team and coaches. Take pride in what you do, work hard, always be respectful, and have a positive attitude. I will be forever grateful for what the game of basketball has taught me and all the relationships it has brought into my life. Thank you so much.
Sergeant presents Emily with her plaque. Fabulous job. Emily Bloss Carpenter, everybody.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony is made possible in part by
Programming on Smoky Hills PBS is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from Nextech, providing the area with top-notch broadband, business, technology, and advertising solutions. Nextech proudly supports economic growth of rural communities.
Frontier Secured Title Company, Goodland, Kansas. Olpe Ag Choice.
It's all right here at Kansas Star Casino and Hotel, I-35, exit 33, Mulvane, Kansas.
Well, we're going to stick with this Emporia State theme and keep Coach Snyder just beaming with pride as we go through the Mount Rushmore of Lady Hornets basketball. At least with Coach Williams, Hall of Famers, we spaced them out over a few years. Collison in 2019, Drew Gooden last year, but we're giving you all the Hornets right now. Up next, Tara Holloway Churchill. All-state basketball selection at Moundridge High School. She led her Wildcats to a state championship during her senior year. She was then a 4-year letter winner in basketball at Emporia State. An All-American selection at ESU in 2000. She was named the Division II National Player of the Year and MIAA MVP in 2000. She led the Lady Hornets to 4 straight NCAA tournaments, 3 MIAA regular season and conference tournament titles, also led the Hornets to 2 Final Four appearances. She finished her ESU career as the school's all-time leader in steals, 2nd in points, 4th in rebounds. She's a member of the ESU Athletics Hall of Fame from 2010. Tonight, she goes in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. Let's hear it for Tara Holloway Churchill.
Hi, welcome. I'm so glad I put this on my phone because now I can't figure out. There we go. Okay. First of all, this is really awesome. I'm so excited for everybody that's here. and all the inductees, and for myself. Oh man, when you're in college, this is the last thing you think about. Like somebody asked me earlier, when you were playing, did you think you would make, like this would happen? No. Do you ever think that far ahead? I don't think I did. Basketball was basketball at the time. So this is pretty cool, and lots of people and lots of bright lights. So anyway, first of all, my first piece of advice that somebody gave me, I am not a public speaker at all, okay? He said, you are a Hall of Fame player, you don't have to be a Hall of Fame speaker. So just keep that in mind, okay? I would much rather play in front of thousands of people watching on a basketball court than this any day, okay? So just remember that. I just want to thank everybody, the induction committee, Jordan Poland. I had a similar experience. He called me, sitting at home trying to do some schooling. I was taking some college classes, and we just got back from a tournament in Wichita with one of my sons, and I said, wait a minute, are you calling about me? Because I thought it was a college coach talking, and he was like, yes, and I was like, okay, back up. Explain to me again what you just said. I had no idea. I wasn't even paying attention. So I was pretty floored when he told me I was going to be inducted into this Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. So thank you, Jordan, for doing this and for putting me on this list. I think it's pretty awesome. Thanks, Coach Slaymaker. He's always been one of the people I've looked up to. Literally, his picture was up in the gym, you know, his little Coach Slay. Forever, and mine is right next to his now. So that was something pretty awesome that I got to deal with. Thanks to my parents. They have always instilled hard work in all of us, okay? My mom was a basketball player. My dad was a football player. So sports have kind of been our family thing. My siblings always thank you for, you know, what you do. Just being there for us. All my coaches from high school to MAYB to college, thank you. I really appreciate, like Coach Schneider, giving me the opportunity to play in college at the next level. I appreciate that. And for my husband and for my boys being here to kind of just be with me and to see this kind of a celebration, it really means a lot to me. I do have some friends and other family members. Thank you for coming out and supporting me in this time. I appreciate it. And all our, I can say fans, because I did have some fans reach out to me, so that's pretty cool. Really want to thank a special teammate of mine, besides Emily Bloss, Jennifer Perrine. When we were in high school, I didn't decide to go to Emporia State or to play basketball until at the end of my senior year. We played Rossville, played Moundridge at the state tournament. And I remember walking by her, and she grabbed me, good game, we beat them, by the way, by a lot. And she grabbed my hand and she said, you better come to Emporia State and play with me. And I was like, I'll think about it. And that's probably when I decided that that's where I wanted to go and play. And I'm very appreciative of her giving me that push, because I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it's turned out pretty awesome. So what has shaped me as a player? Mostly my family, playing 2-on-2. We lived in the country, and I have a younger sister that I played with at Emporia State, and 2 older brothers. You may know one of them, J.C. Holloway, and then my big brother, Brian Holloway. He also played in college. But we would play at home. We lived on the farm, and we would play 2-on-2, and just the competitiveness, the drive, you're not going to go cry to mom because you're going to stay out here and play, has really helped throughout these years, and has helped shape me into the toughness, the grit, the keep working kind of person. I could tell you lots of stories, but I have a time limit, so we're going to move past that. I have a story about Coach Snyder, and what I think, I was thinking about what I should say. I have lots of stories, some of them probably not appropriate for this, but you know. The one that I can remember the most is we went to a basketball game, and I'm terrible with remembering like who we played, what the score was. That's why that piece of paper that has all those stats, I'm glad it was on there because I don't remember any of that. So we went to a basketball game and we played and we won probably by 20 or so. And on the way home, we always stop and get something to eat or whatever. And Coach came back with hamburgers for everybody, a small fries, and a water. Do you remember that? And we were like, we won. And he's like, yeah, I know. Enjoy your hamburger. So we were all confused, like, hey, we won. And the point of the story was that he thought we should have won by more. We probably should have won by more, but to stay humble and to stay hungry. You always want to keep working. You want to beat the teams by as much as you can, or whatever the case was. But we got food, so that's what we were supposed to be happy for. And life lessons, right? Another story that probably has been the most impactful in my life. I was a senior, and we played Central Missouri State. Central Missouri? See, I don't remember the names. Anyway, the Jennies. And we had, it was a close game. It was a battle, back and forth. And Coach called a timeout and said, you're going to run baseline, which was like Emily's box play. It was for me every single time. I was so tired. I was so exhausted. But I had to screen away, pop up to the elbow, catch the ball, and drive to the basket. I'm like, okay. A couple times did it, got a basket. Then I was getting tired. And he had called a timeout, and I was like, I'm tired, Coach. And he's like, that's okay. You're going to score, get fouled, or both every time. I'm like, okay, sure. I did, and I bet we ran that play 30 times. Remember that? And I would go to the line, and I made 1 out of 2 almost every time. And I'd look over at him and just shake my head. After the game, we ended up winning, but after the game, my grad assistant came up to me after the game and said, you know, you scored 38 points. And I was like, I had no idea. I was hoping it was something because I had the ball every single time. And he said, you would have scored 50 if you would have made your free throws. So, yeah, that was, oh man. That was, I was like, and I would ask him after the game, like, why? Why did you? I was tired. And he was like, because I had the confidence in you. I believed in you. And I think that if any coach can get as much as he got out of us, it was Brandon Schneider. It was awesome. It was a great experience. Thank you for that. And life is like basketball has a lot of ups and downs. During college, basketball was always there for me. When it came to an end, I realized I had to move on and put to use the many lessons that I learned. As a mom now, it is my job to prepare my own children for the real world. I reflect back on a lot of basketball stuff. They probably get tired of it. When I was your age, those kind of stories. But one person that always had my back was my mom. She came to all of my games, my dad too. But most mom would drive me to games, and dad sometimes had to work. But she was my biggest supporter. She pushed me. She was the one that said, stop crying and get out there and finish. Your teammates are waiting for you, meaning my brothers. She was the one that pushed me to be a better basketball player, a better student, and a better person. I know she would be very proud of me today, and I owe a lot of credit to her. I miss my mom, and thanks for this honor. I appreciate it.
Awesome job, Tara.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony is made possible in part by Frontier Secured Title Company, Goodland, Kansas.
It's all right here at Kansas Star Casino and Hotel, I-35, exit 33, Mulvane, Kansas.
Programming on Smoky Hills PBS is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from Nextech, providing the area with top-notch broadband, business, technology, and advertising solutions. Nextech proudly supports economic growth of rural communities.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Our next inductee is the only one of our 10 that will be honoring posthumously here tonight. But what a career. Let's head to the capital city of Topeka next and honor Bingo DeMoss. Bingo DeMoss was a Negro Leagues baseball player born in Topeka in 1889. He played for the Topeka Giants in 1905 and went on to play for the Indianapolis ABCs before signing with Chicago American Giants from 1917 to 1925. He served as a captain for the American Giants for 6 of those seasons. He hit over 300 4 times during his career. He served as a player manager for the Detroit Stars for 6 years as well. He coached the Indianapolis ABCs, the Brown Bombers, and the Brooklyn Brown Dodgers. I don't know if Bill James ever ran the numbers on him, but I'm pretty sure his wins above replacement would have been very high, right, Bill? No doubt. He was an absolute star. A finalist for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum Gold Glove Award at second base. He's already a member of the Kansas Baseball Hall of Fame and the Shawnee County Baseball Hall of Fame. So we honor him posthumously tonight, Bingo DeMoss. And accepting the plaque on behalf of Bingo is we have one of our board members, Kathy Hannes, who's going to make her way up here. And Jim will pose for a picture with Kathy as we honor Bingo DeMoss, everybody. All right, from Topeka to Pittsburgh, we head next. Kendall Gammon up next. Let's get some Pittsburgh State and Kansas City Chiefs love going here. A 3-time All-MIAA football player at Pitt State. First team All-American selection in 1991. He was a member of the 1991 NCAA Division II National Championship Pitt State Gorillas football team. How about that? He won 3 MIAA conference titles in football as well. He went on to be drafted in the 11th round of the 1992 NFL Draft by the Pittsburgh Steelers and played 15 NFL seasons as a long snapper and lineman for the Steelers, the New Orleans Saints, and of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. He played in Super Bowl 30 with the Steelers and was voted to the 2004 NFL Pro Bowl as well. He was named the Pittsburgh State 100th anniversary team in 2003. And while he goes in the Hall of Fame as a player tonight, I think he could be a broadcast Hall of Famer as well. I listened to all the NFL announcers when he was doing the Chiefs games, best color analyst in the NFL, for my money, I heard. So, Kendall, we are so glad you're going in the Hall tonight. He's a member of the Pitt State Hall of Fame, the MIAA Hall of Fame, and now the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. Put your hands together for Kendall Gammon.
Thank you very much. First off, thank you to the selection committee. This is something I never dreamed of and realized was even possible. And also to my fellow inductees. I'm wowed by you all reading the stories. Some I know, some I didn't know, but I do now. So thank you. I want to thank everybody that came. First and foremost, my son Blaze, his girlfriend Caitlin, and my other son Drake. Couldn't be here because he is strength and conditioning at Pittsburgh State, and he's helping those 5-0 Gorillas. So I'm excited about that. But also my sister Rhonda, her husband Jim, Nicholas, their son, Macrina, Andrew, my significant other Paige, and then also at the Pitt State table, Steve and Kathy Scott and Miles Schneier. And I appreciate you all being here tonight. For those of you who don't know, I threw a ball between my legs for a living, as fast and as accurately as possible. And as I always say, only in America can you do that and get paid for it. So it is truly a beautiful country. A lot of people they figure since I played in the NFL for 15 years and I was a long snapper that I must have left the hospital with a football in my hand and I was snapping since I was young. But actually, I never snapped a football in a game until my third year in college. And I was actually screwing around in practice in the spring. I was curious how it rolled out of the hands. And then a coach saw me and they realized that I could do it better than anybody we had. Now, at the time, as an offensive lineman, believe it or not, I used to weigh 310 pounds. So back then, if it wasn't bolted down, I was eating it. But I wanted no part of it. But they said you were going to do it. And so I said, okay. And I went into the spring game and I had a poor snap. And it embarrassed me. And I didn't like the idea of letting my team down. And so I practiced all that summer. And then came back my sophomore, junior, and senior years. And lo and behold, was the first long snapper to ever get invited to the combine, first long snapper to ever be added to a Pro Bowl roster, played in the Super Bowl. Don't remember the score of that game. It's too soon still. And I've been fortunate enough to broadcast one as well. But I tell you that story about the long snapping because our life's about roles and what we do. And sometimes as people and wanting to do different things, we don't realize the talents we have. It takes somebody else to realize those. And with this being a sports theme, certainly, oftentimes it's our coaches that recognize that talent. Sometimes it's our parents, but I can't stress to you how important I think it is to be humble and understand that maybe something that you don't see, somebody else can see, and how important that is. It served me well. I think mindset is an important thing. After, I think, playing in 243 games, broadcasting 199 more, mindset and intention became a part of my will and what I did. And it never occurred to me that I wouldn't play in the NFL. I was going to try to figure out a way to get there. Now, mind you, I had two offers, Pittsburgh State and Washburn, and both were partial scholarships. And Pittsburgh State was just the right one for me. And again, just taking advantage of my opportunities, that mindset is what got me here. And I'm so very thankful. I never have been great at receiving awards. All I wanted to do was compete. All I wanted to do was compete and not let the people down that I was playing with. And that's what I did, and I loved it. And I've been very fortunate. When you can do what you love, you can play a kid's sport until you're 37 years old. Less than 80 people have done that in the NFL, 15 years. I'm truly blessed. And if I had not listened to somebody else who said, you know what, you need to throw that damn ball between your legs as fast and as accurately as you can, I wouldn't be up here. So I tried to take advantage of my opportunity. I've been very fortunate to be able to come back to my alma mater at Pittsburgh State and help be there. It doesn't feel like a job for me, so I'm truly blessed. And you know what? I love what I did. I'm very proud of it, but I do want to end with this. My greatest accomplishment is my two boys, Blaze and Drake. And Caitlin, as far as I'm concerned, you're my daughter as well. So football is what I did, but it's not who I am. And I always tried to stress that. It was the best temporary job I could have. And it was a great one. But more importantly, my kids, my family, and everything is the number one thing to me. And I'm just so glad you all could be here. So with that, I thank you very much. I'm humbled, I'm honored, and have a nice night. Thank you.
Once again, one of the great guys in pro football and in broadcasting, Kendall Gammon, everybody.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony is made possible in part by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas State Bowling Proprietors, the Boston Red Sox,
Well, from Pittsburgh, Kansas, we head to Lawrence, Kansas next to honor a baseball writer, historian, and researcher, Bill James. Bill James wrote and published the Bill James Baseball Abstract in 1977 to 1988, which presented an in-depth analysis of baseball statistics from the preceding season. He wrote several other baseball books and abstracts, including The Baseball Book, the Bill James Historical Baseball Abstract, and the Bill James Handbook. He created new statistical categories, including runs created, win shares, and major league equivalency for minor league players. He coined the term sabermetrics for his statistical analysis and to honor the Society of American Baseball Research, SABR, sabermetrics. He also served as the senior advisor for baseball operations for the Boston Red Sox between 2002 and 2019, winning 4 World Series titles. And you might recall, the Red Sox had famously not won a World Series for 86 straight years. 84 of those were without Bill James. He gets there, 2 years later, they're champs. I'm just saying, this guy's that good. Put your hands together for a legendary historian, writer, and researcher, Bill James.
I was given 5 to 8 minutes to express my feelings about this honor, and I thought I would just stand here and smile for 5 minutes. I must certainly be the worst athlete ever to be inducted into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. I'm certain I am. And to describe the point, in my high school graduating class, there were 8 boys. There were about 35 boys in a 4-year school. And I was the second tallest kid in school, behind my cousin who was 6'8" and played JUCO basketball. And I didn't make the basketball team. So, do the math. When I began my career, I worked mostly on my own and mostly in isolation for the first 25 to 30 years of my career, as a writer often does. And then later I had the opportunity to be a part of a team, a part of an organization for 17 years, during which I was fortunate enough to be rewarded with 4 World Series rings. I almost never see those rings, very rarely. They are in a safety deposit box. But nonetheless, I count them among my most prized possessions on earth. I'm not certain how often I will get down here to see this plaque, but I will think of it in the same way, that I don't see it much, but it's one of my most prized possessions. I've often been asked what I learned from being a member of a fantastic organization, and being asked that question is a little bit like being asked if I could swim the Atlantic Ocean. There's too much water there. The most important thing that you come to understand is the enormous number of people who contribute to a championship. Of course, the championship is finalized by the relatively small number of people who are on the field, but the number of people who help to get the players on that field number in the thousands. Of course, I'm talking about the scouts, and of course, I'm talking about the coaches and the minor league managers and the college coaches who develop the players, the high school coaches, the mothers and fathers who played catch with him, taught them the basics of the game when they were 8 years old, the medical staff and training staff, and of course, I'm talking about the owners who put up the money and the fans who get the money back to the owners so that they can build the team, and the broadcasters, and the reporters, and the public address announcers, and the ballpark security workers, and the businessmen who buy advertising, and the people from the organization who arrange 100 meetings with potential advertisers so that 5 of them will say yes and put up some money. And of course, I'm talking about the general manager and about the rooms full of executives who supervise the minor league operations, and the people who arrange the travel and do the bookkeeping and review the contracts and make sure the organization is fulfilling all of its responsibilities, and also about the handful of people in each organization who do the stuff like I did. But also you cannot forget that the strength of the Boston Red Sox or the strength of the Kansas City Royals is not based on what happened in the last 5 years. It is based on having millions of people who chose to love that team, 30 years or 50 years ago or 70 years ago. So that for the Red Sox, if you were to shake the hand of every person who contributed to the strength of the organization, you would have to find Ted Williams and Bobby Doerr and Carl Yastrzemski and Carlton Fisk and the hundreds of others who built the organization and who built the game itself. When you win a world championship, you run onto the field and a security person lets you go on there because he knows who you are. And then you see a few hundred of those people. And only in that moment do you really feel the weight of all of the people who have contributed to that championship. As a fan or an outsider, I regret to say that you can never create that feeling by imagination. You have to be there to understand the weight of that moment. This is a moment like that for me, where I feel the weight of all the people who have contributed to my life and career. Of course, my wife is here with me, and I won't try to mention the others because that would just be names to you, I'm afraid. I hope that eventually baseball and other sports will find a way to somewhat level the great income inequalities among those many contributors. And of course, I'm not talking about myself. The Red Sox always paid me much more than I was actually worth. But there are people who stay in baseball just because they love the game, and some of those people could be treated better by the game than they are. Athletes are disciplined, goal-oriented people, and while I have always worked very hard, I have to say honestly that I was never a disciplined or goal-oriented person. I did everything that I have done in my professional life just because I wanted to do it. When I started doing the work that I still do today, the type of work that I did yesterday and I will do tomorrow, when I started that, the world informed me very often that there were very few people who were interested in this kind of stuff, and that I would never make a living doing these kinds of things, which in fact no one before me ever had. And I knew that people who told me that were wrong. And I was quite certain that there were people out there who would be interested in learning the things that I had discovered through research. And I always felt certain I would eventually make a living doing it. But I think that the only other person who believed that was my wife, and she believed in the concept of it and believed in me. But I have been continually astonished by the ever-expanding universe of people who are interested in analytical questions about sports. I have seen that universe grow from about 5 people to 20, to 100, to 1,000, and eventually to millions. I believed in the audience I was seeking more than anyone else did, but I have still underestimated the potential audience by a factor of hundreds. All I really did in life was to open a door. I opened a door to what I imagined to be a room full of people and found that the room was inhabited by many millions of people. But honestly, I was just farting around. I was just playing. I was just entertaining myself by doing stuff that I enjoyed doing and enjoyed sharing with the world. And I suspect that if these walls could talk, that many of the plaques on the walls would say the same thing, that they just did this because they enjoyed doing it. They appreciate the money, and they appreciate the awards, but mostly, I believe they did it because they loved doing it. That is the purpose of sports. They only exist to be enjoyed. Thank you all very much.
Once again, Bill James, everybody.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony is made possible in part by the Boston Red Sox, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Frontier Secured Title Company, Goodland, Kansas, Olpe Ag Choice.
Hall of Famer number 7 takes us back to Emporia and also to Olpe, Kansas, Jesse Nelson. Jesse was a 4-year letterman in basketball at Emporia State under Kansas Sports Hall of Fame inductee Ron Slaymaker. Jesse scored 640 career points in 98 games for the Hornets. He was then named head coach of the Olpe girls basketball team in 1978. He finished his career as the all-time winningest coach in Kansas high school basketball history, girls or boys, with a whopping 951 career victories. His career winning percentage was an astounding 89.5%, 951 and 111 all time. He won 4 state championships at Olpe in 1981, 2010, 2011, and 2021, and made the state tournament 30 times. He was named the 2014 USA Today America Girls Basketball Coach National Champion, the 2016 McDonald's All-American Head Coach, as well as a 2021 National Federation of State High School Associations Girls Basketball Coach of the Year. He's a member of the Emporia State Athletics Hall of Fame, and as my good buddy Greg, the voice of the Hornets, told me earlier tonight, and I believe CLINT BOWYER confirmed for us, he was the driver's ed teacher of one CLINT BOWYER, so he literally taught CLINT how to drive. How about that? Amazing. Give it up for a Kansas Sports Hall of Famer, Jesse Nelson.
I'm very humbled and honored to be one of the just over 300 names that currently make up the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame, and to be a part of these prestigious inductees that make up this group. I thank Jordan and for his hard work, and for the Hall of Fame board for including me. This is an awesome honor, and I'm proud to be here, and always proud to be a Kansan. What a talented and packed class of Kansans are highlighted here tonight. Perhaps I feel just a little out of place. Pretty ordinary, really. I'm pretty sure I'm not here for my oratory skills either, but I'm usually limited to halftime of a girls' basketball game, where I get about 10 minutes as the halftime. It takes 2 to get to the locker room, 2 to get back, 2 for them to do whatever it is before I go in the locker room, and so on. So you got about 3 minutes maybe to get 15-year-old girls to understand what you're going to do different in the second half. Coach Slay, his name will come up a time or so here. He's always advising me. He's told me to keep it short. And then he told me that again. He told me that a third time. He asked me how I was going to start this, and I wanted to mess with him a little bit. So I said, well, it's really all about my players, so I'm going to start by reading the roster of 44 years of teams. I'm a whole bunch better talking about others than I am about talking about myself, so we'll see if I can do that quickly. This is really nice for me in that it has that bit of, if you've already picked up on that hometown Emporia flavor to it, I can't help but highlight those connections from Tara Holloway Churchill, an outstanding, hard-nosed high school player that ended at least one of my seasons in a sub-state, and later Emporia State All-American player that I was able to watch most of her college career, or at least the home games. Her sister, who is now the assistant coach at Olpe, was also a fine player that was really tough on our teams. Emily Bloss Carpenter, again, I saw her college career, another ESU All-American. I think Brandon, I watched his practice one day and he asked me, what do you think of her? And I think with a real eye for talent, I said, well, she's probably too skinny and too pretty to be a good player. So she just was an All-American, that's all. Kendall Gammon, okay, how do I connect Emporia with this guy? All-American football player, pro career. I'm sure he remembers me. I was right there on the sideline with him because I've run the chains for Emporia State football for 49 years. So I got to see him from a lot closer than what's safe, really. Roy Williams, even, that's a spinoff he's a spinoff of Dean Smith, who is from Emporia. 15 great years at KU, 418, 101 record. What a coach's mentor he was, too. I stopped watching him when he left the state, but I heard he won a few games after that as well. I'm not sure. I thought that it was great that he was included here today, demonstrating that the people of Kansas are forgiving. In 2021, he retired, so watching him closely in 2021, I did too. We had such similar careers. I read where he actually retired on April Fool's Day, and I'm not sure if there's a story there or not, but we talked earlier today, and we talked for a while, and I really didn't want to brag to him, but when I retired from coaching, it was paying me almost $5,000 a year. Just more similarities, it's kind of scary. I also want to mention, as has been mentioned a few times here, that CLINT BOWYER. Now, I've known Clint's family for a very long time. My son hung out and played baseball with Clint's brother, Casey. I've taught well over 2,000 driver ed students. One of them was Clint. Now, just you wonder sometimes how much you impact people. Well, with 2,000 drivers, I might not remember this quite right, but there's no fact checkers here anyway. So, you know, you look at Casey, a big, handsome, confident, successful NASCAR driver, and now broadcaster for NASCAR races, where he actually talks and says stuff like, "There they go again." I bet they come around, that kind of stuff. You know, now he's a big, confident broadcaster. So, you know, however, I might say that I would have had him as a freshman. You know, juniors and seniors look like nice young men. Freshmen look like ugly little boys. And so I set a schedule for that summer to drive 60 kids a minimum of 6 hours each. Up the sidewalk to drive one day comes CLINT BOWYER for a 60-minute driving lesson. Here he is, sheepishly. He didn't talk. It was his brother that talked a lot, okay? But here he comes, little leather racing suit, patches all over it like Toys R Us and Chuck E. Cheese and Crayola, stuff like that. He was carrying his little NASCAR booster seat. In one hand, had a little shiny helmet in the other. And he curiously had those leather gloves with pictures on them, and he had like Big Bird on one hand and Cookie Monster on the other. It was real easy because I could just say, "Turn towards Cookie Monster." And I know he had different gloves later on because as I watched his career, and because I know he's a giving guy, I know that twice I saw him run up to other drivers after a race and attempt to give them his gloves on the chin. Ryan Newman and Jeff Gordon, I believe. Anyway, sometimes you just don't realize the impact that you have. We'd get ready to drive and we'd leave the parking lot quickly. It was obvious to me that Clint could drive a lick, but he was fast. And I told him I'd drive him every day till he could get at least 2 things right. But with a big class, that might be all I had time for. I said, "Choose 2 things." Without hesitating, he replied, "I want to learn to turn left and pass people." I said, "Okay, but we'll have to hurry." Well, look where those lessons took him. Each student for a final drive had to do a tire change. And after we completed our last drive, we pulled in the parking lot. And I got out, and Clint just sat there in the car. Outran 5 guys. They gave us 4 new tires and a tank of gas. That one where he skids across the finish line on his top, by the way, at Daytona, we never did practice that one at all. That's all on his own. You know, he had an amazing career, 15 years in NASCAR. He's given back to the city many times over for youth causes and for a beautiful community building. He shared his success, you know, which is what what sports is all about. He shared it through his involvement and his generosity, and I'm proud to be honored here and to watch him be honored as well. I used to watch his every race, and I'd watch it until he wrecked out, and then I'd go work on my yard. And for a while there, I had a great looking lawn. You know, one more thing, though. I never did. He had 541 races, something like that, and went through a lot of parts. And never did I even get like a little sticker that said "Driving by Nelson" or something like that. Nothing. Anyway, not one. My story is a bit different than these others. You know, I'm like I said, a pretty ordinary guy. I've been very fortunate. I've always surrounded myself with great people. I grew up in Emporia. I'm still there. I came from a terrific family, great family, seven kids. I had great teachers throughout school. I had quality coaches, high school, and of course in college I had Ron Slaymaker, Hall of Famer. My dad was a wonderful man, a railroader that had work and home. When he wasn't at work, he worked to fix what 7 kids tore up. Fixing our stuff, the neighbor's stuff, friends' stuff, or neighbor's friends' stuff, the church's stuff. My mom had us 7 kids and probably 7 more in daycare, and I was never really sure which ones were ours. She treated them all the same. I'm still not sure what it is. I have to wait till Christmas for them to show up, but I've never been sure which ones. I coached with the same simple rules that my dad parented with, and that was dad discipline mostly with don't disappoint me. Pretty simple. I still try not to. He's been gone since 1974. I coached the same way. Players didn't fear me, but they didn't want to disappoint me. Our rules were the same as my dad's. Work hard, play hard, do what's right, and have fun. And don't disappoint me. That's easy. At Emporia High School, I was twice first team All-State, All-Class, and all-time leading rebounder. At ESU, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year under Hall of Famer Coach Slaymaker. Years later, I realized that that's what you designate a player you don't really want to shoot. I was a much better player after college, making the AAU All-American list before blowing out a knee for the last time. If you want to know how I played, the Colorado papers at that time had assigned me the nickname the Assassin of the Plains. So that tells a little bit about how I played the game. I came back to Emporia as Coach Slay's assistant at Emporia State after a year of teaching in Kingman. I left there a year later, not sure about coaching, to sell real estate and insurance. By some hand of fate, I got calls from a coach down the road and an AD and a principal wanting to know if I had interest in a job there. After some discussion with Bill Cowan, who I have here today, it was decided I would coach the girls and assist him with the boys. He would do the same for me. I also assisted football, baseball, track, as well as the junior high sports senior class sponsor. 1 year, even had the cheerleaders. Every coach is influenced immensely by the veteran coach that you first assist. Good or bad, Bill Cowan was a classy, organized guy that pushed me in the right direction as to how to handle myself, how to treat kids. He helped me go my own way, but with some much needed guidance. I thank him for his direction when I most needed it, just as I'm sure Coach Williams was influenced by Dean Smith, another Emporian. It was Dean Smith, wasn't it? Or Billy Tubbs, one of those two. Anyway, Coach Slay and Bill influenced me, not so much in X's and O's, but really on how to treat kids. My second assistant and friend was Jack Oglesby. Jack, as a history teacher, served 2 primary purposes. He was an excellent game time strategist, and he could always make me laugh. Jack was very valuable to our program and kept me entertained. My third assistant was a freshman on my very first team. Multiple year All-Stater, all everything at Emporia State. Still holds many Emporia State records. I think she held 19 records at one time. 2-time All-American, averaged nearly 30 points a game, scored 47 in one game. She was my assistant for around 25 years. She's an exceptional coach, made coaching so enjoyable, loyal and tireless, and truly a great friend as well as an exceptional coach. 951 wins, and she was a big part of those as she was there for the very first one and there for the very last one. She could coach, she'd be a good coach at any level. I was going along fine, by the way, with coaching till one day she said, "Hey, Coach, have you ever thought about the idea that your first team here are now 62-year-old women?" I had not thought about that. And retirement followed. Now listen, I miss coaching, something awful, some health problems, but I had developed Lyme disease about 10 years ago, and with it comes a lot of fatigue and pain, something that had plagued me for about 10 years. I told the administration I didn't want to start a year that I didn't have the energy to do. So they went out and hired a very special friend of mine that for over 50 years had always been there for me to infuse more energy into 85-year-old Ron Slaymaker. Took the job. Ron's a great friend, a mentor of mine, and he took over the program. In 44 years, I had terrific parents to deal with. Typically, they all wanted their kid and the best 4 others on the floor. But they had great kids. Kids that matched my style and believed that what we were asking them to do gave them a chance to win. In coaching, I've always felt that we get honored or blamed for what our players do. The awards that we get are because of our players. As a small town coach, and I mean we're a town of 500, school of 100, maybe 40 girls in the building. Because of my players, this small school coach was twice named National Coach of the Year and had the amazing opportunity for Carolyn and I to coach the winning McDonald's All-American team in Chicago, which was an amazing experience. I truly feel my players did these things for me. 44 years of coaching, all of them in the same school. I have no regrets. The school, the community, the kids were a great fit for me. One of my proudest stats was the behavior of my kids. Every door that got open or meal that was served got 20 thank yous. Every kid said thank you. If we left the restaurant, every kid thanked the staff. The players took pride in the compliments that they received from staff, from officials, and from other schools. In 1,100 high school games over 44 years, I had 1 player technical, 1. And that came in my first 5 years, I think. We didn't talk about it a lot. Kids just had an understanding of how they should behave. Technicals, I think, are always selfish. It's always for selfish reasons. Responsibility and character came first. Responsibility, if I said only one thing that we wanted to teach, it was responsibility. You're responsible for your performance. It works in the classroom, works on a team, works in the workplace. It's hard to teach in this world that we're in right now where people blame others all the time. We blame officials, we blame the other team, we blame other kids on the team. We try to get to where it's okay to have a bad performance, but just own it and then fix it. Finally, my family, and specifically my wife, we just celebrated 46 years of marriage that followed 7 years of dating. That means that I don't make snap decisions real well. Or going back to the insurance thing, I was a lousy salesman, either one of those. But anyway, she had the hard part, often covering our kids' activities at another school while I was spending hours with someone else's kids. It was a tough job, which she did exceptionally. Vanna's 2 brothers grew up in our house. One of them, John's here from California with his wife. John's a retired LAPD police bomb dog specialist, now travels with and does security work for the Clippers. Mike's a retired career military officer who couldn't be here as he's in Thailand and as we speak, but his wife is. Also at my table is one of my long string of terrific point guards, longtime friend, Jalinda Watts. Those are all my best friends, along with my 3 kids, only one of which could come tonight because of other obligations. My daughter Jamie, grandsons Madden and Tanner, 7-year-old Kendall. Most of you have seen her. She's the one right there. She'd like to be introduced, really. Anyway, they always were great supporting me. Jake, my son, lives a couple hours away, but he always knew everything about my next opponent, their strengths, their weaknesses, their schedules, and always had time to tell me his opinion about it. I have one sibling who also played at Emporia State University, and that's Tammy, and her husband are here from Tulsa. I thank God for the opportunity I was given to coach and the blessings that I was given, and I was truly blessed. I again thank each of you for being here and for including this ordinary guy in this very proud moment. It truly means a great deal to me. Thank you.
What a great job by Jesse Nelson. If coaching only paid $5,000 a year, you ought to look into stand-up comedy. I'd say Seinfeld and Kevin Hart would tell you it pays quite well, and you, I would listen to all night. He was awesome. Jesse Nelson, everybody.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony is made possible in part by Olpe Ag Choice, the Boston Red Sox.
Programming on Smoky Hills PBS is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from Nextech, providing the area with top-notch broadband, business, technology, and advertising solutions. Nextech proudly supports economic growth of rural communities.
All right, up next we head to Kansas City and honor a groundskeeper, George Toma. George Toma was a groundskeeper for over 7 decades in professional sports. A groundskeeper starting with the Kansas City Athletics from 1957 to 1967. Then with the Kansas City Royals from 1969 to 1999. And the Kansas City Chiefs from 1963 to 1991. He worked the grounds for over 50 Super Bowls. Think about that. 2 U.S.-hosted Olympic Games and over 37 Pro Bowls. One of 4 that founded the Sports Turf Managers Association in 1981. He's the namesake for the STMA's George Toma Golden Rake Award and the NFL Dan Reeves Pioneer Award recipient of 2001. He went into the Major League Baseball Groundskeepers Hall of Fame in 2012, went into the Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame also in 2012. The Missouri Sports Hall of Fame got him in first in 2016. It's about time we get him in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. Put your hands together for George Toma.
Well, good afternoon, fellow inductees, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. Many people call me the nitty-gritty dirt man, the sod father, but I'm just a 92-year-old man in this game of groundskeeping for 80 years. I was born on Groundhog's Day, February the 2nd in 1929, in a poor anthracite coal region of Edwardsville, Pennsylvania, which is just across the river from Wilkes-Barre, located in the beautiful Wyoming Valley. At that time, the area had many coal mines. My little town had 3. When I was 10 years old, my dad died from anthracite, black lung disease, from working in the coal mines. I had to get a job. In those days, when you were 8 years old, you started work in the mines, and many of these young boys were killed by a cave-in or being kicked by a mule. The mule pulled coal cars coming out of the mines. But when I was 10 years old, I got a job on a vegetable farm. 10 cents an hour, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. When I was 11, I got a job on a chicken and vegetable farm for 50 cents a day plus lunch. The farmer was very good to me and taught me a lot. Some of these things I even used at the Super Bowl. Every Saturday, he would say, kill 2 chickens and take all the eggs and vegetables you can carry. When I was 12, I got a job with my neighbor, Stan Scheckler, who was a groundskeeper for the Wilkes-Barre Barons, a Class A Eastern League team operated by the Cleveland Indians. When I was 16, Bill Veeck bought the Cleveland and many other farm clubs. In those days, major league teams had 20 or more farm clubs. Bill made Stan the head trainer since he had training experience, and me at 16, a senior in high school, as head groundskeeper, and here I am today. After World War II was over, many military bases were deactivated, and I accompanied Emil Bosser, the world's best groundskeeper, during the off seasons of 1948, 49, and 50, and we would go and build spring training fields. In 1950, I was drafted into the U.S. Army and served in the Korean War. Back home in 1953, the Indians moved to Reading, Pennsylvania. In 1953, Detroit took over, and I was there in 1953 and 1954. In 1955, I went with Detroit to AAA Detroit of the International League in Buffalo, New York. In 1956 and 57, to AAA American Association in Charleston, West Virginia. In August of 1957, Detroit called to let me know they had given Kansas City A's permission to talk to me and to call them. Before I called them, I called Emil Blazers for advice. He said, "George, don't go there. A very poor operation and a terrible field." He said he was there monthly trying to fix up the field for his friend Lou Boudreau, who was the manager. I went out there on Labor Day to check it out. It was a bad field, mostly weeds. The next day, I went to Denver, for they also wanted me. It was an outstanding, beautiful field. I went back to Charleston to think it over. I decided to go to Kansas City, for if I screwed it up, no one would notice. Emil has said it was between the sandlot and minor leagues. In 5 months, I turned the field from the worst to one of the best, just from grass seed and hard work. But I like to throw a little thing here. You know, like they said, it was a sandlot minor league operation. Like for the tarp crew even. In 1955, 66, if they needed somebody to put the tarp down and off, they went to the front office and got $20. Then went down the 17th, 18th and Vine and got 10 winos to help take the tarp off. Then when I was there, they paid the tarp crew 40 cents an hour or $2 a game. Then when I went to Kansas City, we had 16 people on the tarp crew and paid them $3 an hour or $18 a game. Now, Trevor Vance has a good operation. He has 22 men on the tarp crew and they get paid $17 an hour. That's great for a high school student, 6 hours. And I sincerely thank Dave and Dan Glass, Dayton Moore, and John Sherman for keeping this going. In 1960, C.O. Finley bought the club. In 1963, the Chiefs came to town. Now we had football. During my time at Old Municipal Stadium, we had 2 baseball teams, the Royals and the A's. Chiefs football. Kansas City Spurs soccer. We had the Beatles concerts, religious events, extra Kansas City Monarch games. With all this activity, baseball said we had the best field in baseball. Football said we had the best field in football. When Pete Rozelle came to KC after the game at a press conference, they asked him what he saw the difference between the AFL and the NFL. He said he didn't see much on the field and play, but he had never seen such a beautiful field. That was how I was called to work the first Super Bowl field in Los Angeles and have worked every one since, 56 years. It was a long, tough road to haul, but with a lot of hard work, the fields were beautiful for all events, winning a lot of praise from sportcasters in spite of not having assistants or people who worked all year. Sometimes when you get in this game, when I was in Charleston, West Virginia, I got a little tired of being a groundskeeper, so we would use sawdust to top dress the grass now and then. So when we went up there to get a load of sawdust, I talked to the owner of the lumber mill up there. I said, I like to applied for a job. He said, what a puny little kid want to be a lumberjack. So I seen him shake his head, and he had these big lumberjacks come over, and he gave me this keen axe and said, take this 8-year-old elm down. I went through it pretty fast. Then he winked to his big man. He says, now take this 12-year-old through. Heck, I went through that like a hot knife going through hot butter. He said, son, where do you learn your lumberjack at? I said, over there in the Sahara Desert. He says, Sahara Forest. He says, don't you mean Sahara Desert? I said, that's what they call it now when I got finished with it. With all these events, we never resorted, and that I would spend on the field would range only from $500 to $1,000. Now a football stadium spends in millions to maintain their fields. C.O. Finley always appreciated the work ethic from our crew. These students from Lincoln and Central High School could drag the infield in 28 seconds and put down the tarp in 45 seconds. Mel Allen, the Yankee broadcaster, would say they should be in the Olympics. If not for C.O. Finley and the students from Lincoln and Central High School who made up the crew, Dr. James R. Watson of the Toro Company, an agronomist, and Jim Steig of the National Football League, I would not be here before you today. Also, a sincere and then some thank you to all the local people and all the local businessmen in Kansas City, and also nationwide, plus worldwide, who helped give us over $1 million worth of equipment and supplies each year just about, and to help us have a major league operation. In 1972, we moved football to Arrowhead Stadium. In 1973, baseball with the Kansas City Royals moved to the Nurse Stadium adjacent to Arrowhead, now Kauffman Stadium. Now Trevor Vance takes care of Kauffman with one of the best groundskeeping operations in baseball. I hired him in 1985 as a tarp crew member. Over across the street at Arrowhead, Travis Hogan, the KC Chiefs groundskeeper. Travis has the best playing field in football. He does the job and then some. I'd like to thank Travis for inviting me to help him paint the field for the first football game this year. For they painted the end zones like I painted the end zones back in 1972, and when we opened up Arrowhead Stadium. And who was at my side in spirit was Lamar Hunt, because Lamar Hunt and I got along good, and I had to pay Lamar Hunt $1 a year, for he was my agent. I've been called up to help with many fields in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl, playoffs in San Francisco and Chicago Soldiers Field, all the Super Bowl games, Pro Bowl games, the 1984 and 1996 Olympic fields, in 1994 World Cup soccer fields around the world with NFL American Bowl games, spring training sites, and a very memorable baseball field at Kibbutz and Gezer, Israel for the Maccabi games. Now in Kansas City, there's a wiffle ball field named the George P. Toma Field, where events are held to raise money for the Battle Within, a program to help veterans suffering from PTSD. I sincerely want to thank all the people here for putting up with me. Seed, especially grass seed, the gift of life. And every blade of grass has an angel that bends over it and whispers, grow, grow, grow. And to all of you, may all your good fortunes be as numerous as blades of grass and then some. And this 93-year-old man says, thank you, and I love you all.
Great job. Wasn't he great? The sod father, George Toma, everybody.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony is made possible in part by Frontier Secured Title Company, Goodland, Kansas. Olpe Ag Choice.
It's all right here at Kansas Star Casino and Hotel, I-35, exit 33, Mulvane, Kansas.
Kansas State Bowling Proprietors.
Well, from Kansas City to now Wichita. Let's head about 8 miles up the road to Wichita and honor a legendary Wichita State Shocker bowling coach, Gordon Vadakin. Gordon was the bowling coach at WSU from 1977 to 2019. He won 18 bowling national championships at Wichita State, 11 men's team titles, and 7 on the women's side. He coached men's and or women's to intercollegiate bowling championships every year as a coach. Coached 9 individual national champions, 4 on the men's side, 5 with the ladies. He was a member of the Team USA bowling coaching staff from 1991 to 2008. Gordon is the namesake of the National Collegiate Bowling Coaches Association Men's Coach of the Year Award. He's a member of the Great Plains Bowling Association Hall of Fame, the Kansas Bowling Association Hall of Fame, the USBC Hall of Fame, the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame, the United States Bowling Association Hall of Fame, and the Bowling Coaches Hall of Fame. How about that? Put your hands together as we honor a Wichita State legend, Gordon Vadakin.
These are hard acts to follow, aren't they? Good grief. I want to thank you, Brian. I want to thank Jordan Poland, the board of the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame, for putting my name up, selecting me. It was certainly a shock when I got the phone call from Jordan. I was dumbfounded. I could not believe this was happening. I too, as everyone else has said, want to congratulate all the inductees that are going in tonight, with one more to come. And yes, I am the guy right before the guy you want to hear from. That guy, okay. All of the introduction stuff is all nice, but as all of us know as coaches and athletes and student athletes, success never starts and ends due to the success of one individual's efforts, do they? And like many have said before me, I always manage to have an amazing team of special people around me that truly, they were the ones that created the accomplishments, and somehow those got attributed to me. I don't really know how. Got a few of them here tonight that I'd like to recognize. I think the most important person in my coaching career, in my life, is my wife, Cindy. Just 3 days ago, we celebrated our 43rd wedding anniversary. And using some of the math that I just heard from Jesse, we dated for 6 years, so we're closing in on 50 years too. So I'd like to throw that out there. But my wife supported me like no other. I worked, like many of us do as coaches, 60 to 70 hours a week, every week, including holidays, because we had tournaments, intercollegiate tournaments on those holidays. Luckily, my wife bowled. Cindy was a bowler. I would have been divorced a long time ago if she didn't have some idea what this involved. She, as a matter of fact, also bowled for Wichita State. That's where we met, started dating for those 6 years. She was on the very first national championship team that was won by the Shocker Bowling Program. That was way back in 1975 in Dayton, Ohio. She did the lion's share of raising our kids since I was gone so long, our daughter and our son. She worked full-time herself in the aircraft industry here in Wichita. She bowled leagues and tournaments. She's a Wonder Woman. I don't know how she did it. It's a blur. Thank you, Cindy. I love you so much. Our son Kenny is here tonight. Cindy and I are so proud of our son Kenny. He works as a drone engineer for a Boston-based company, American Robotics. It's a cool job. part-times as a boom operator for refueling jets and refueling planes for the United States Air Force as well. We have the best daughter-in-law ever, his wife, Kara, who is pregnant. We're excited. She will be due in March, and we're thrilled about that, a baby boy, we understand, and that will be 3 grandkids for us because our daughter, who could not be here tonight, has 2 kids herself. Kara works with the uber successful local YMCA 360 program that you may have heard about. It's just, she works in marketing, and it's just tremendous. Well, as you might have guessed, I bowled on the Shocker team early on, and there's some people I need to introduce here tonight that are part of that team I talked about that happened to create the success that I have been credited with. My mentor, my teacher, a visionary guy, was Cindy and I's coach back in the mid to early 70s, and luckily he is here tonight. He showed me that kind of anything is possible. He showed me a vision about bowling for your country or representing your country in sports. He was the coach of that at 1975 National Championship women's team, and he is here with his wife, Jean, Mr. Paul Wallachek. Thank you, Paul. At my table, we have the current Wichita State Director of College Bowling. He's one of my very best friends, and he and I coached alongside for almost all of these national championships that we won. He also was a member of the first national championships on the men's side for Wichita State. That was in 1980 in Milwaukee. He's a 2-time member of Team USA, and I think his greatest honor, of course, is that as a member of Team USA, he went through an elimination process and became the only United States male bowler to represent our country in the Olympic Games, and that was in Seoul, South Korea, way back in 1988. My good friend, Mark Lewis. Thank you. You know, as I say I'm a bowler, and it's cool to be the first bowler that goes into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. After college, and even a little during college, one of my teammates, we put together a very, very good team here locally that competed in local leagues and regional tournaments. This is outside of college bowling, and national events. And one of these teammates is probably one of the greatest amateur bowlers in the entire world. I don't know how many 300 games he has, but I think it's somewhere around 40 plus. So that's just crazy. He still averages nearly 230, and I think he's 75 years old. That's pretty incredible. Who is that guy? Mark Jensen, here with his wife, Connie. Mr. Jensen. All right. We have the 2 head coaches of the current Shocker Bowling program. All these people, I had the opportunity to work with all of them during my tenure with the Shocker Bowling program. We have the current head coach of the Shocker Women's Bowling team. She's been on Youth Team USA, Junior Team USA, Adult Team USA. She's a former national touring professional. She is the coach of Wichita State's most recent national championship in 2021, a great friend, Holly Harris. Holly, thanks for everything you've done for us. And interestingly enough, we have that team I talked about, which had Rick Steelsmith, Mark Jensen, Mark Lewis, myself, and who am I forgetting? Paul Wallachek, of course. We're all on this same team. We have the honor, many teams that are kind of high-level teams that compete ask for sponsors, right? Sponsor the team. We maybe had the best sponsor we could ever hope for. For our team, it was by a local businessman by the name of Stan Chilton. Stan Chilton ran a company called Chilton Vending Supply. I think I learned more about professionalism and class and integrity and honesty through this gentleman than I learned from anyone else. And later in his years, as he was turning his company over to his son, we got to work with his son, and he is definitely a chip off the old block. This guy has got all those same attributes. He's one incredibly nice individual. So honored he came in from Colorado to be here with us tonight. He and his wife, Deanna. Randy Chilton and Deanna. Thanks, Randy. We have the Shocker men's team head coach here. First time in history, there was a first-team All-American all 4 years of his college career. He too was on the United States team. He went on to the professional tour. He was Rookie of the Year his first year. He has several PBA national titles, and he, like his counterpart on the women's side, Holly Harris, won Wichita State's men's team's most recent national title, and that was in 2021. He's one of the biggest stars from our program by far. That's Rick Steelsmith. Rick, you know, I'm not done with Rick here. I got to tell a story about Rick Steelsmith. Rick Steelsmith was bowled on the Shocker team in the mid-'80s, and in 1986 our team was lucky enough to make it to the national championships in Houston, Texas. We're in the practice session before the tournament starts. It hasn't started yet. We're in the practice session. And many times there are a lot of bowling balls being used because people are trying to match up their balls to the lanes. The ball return was crammed with bowling balls, and as sometimes rarely happens, one of those balls is pushed off the ball return. And Rick's left foot happened to be underneath it when that ball hit. I thought I'd bring this up. It's kind of an excruciating story, okay? Well, he just crumpled to the ground immediately. Oh my God. And you got to remember, Rick had been first-team All-American the prior 2 years. He is the best player in collegiate bowling. He was the best player for all 4 years. He was in college bowling. He hit the ground. We surrounded him. We hauled him up on the concourse. We carefully took his shoe off. It landed on his big toe. It broke his big toe. It split his big toenail in half. And his shoe was full of blood. It was a mess. Well, we only had 5 players. We didn't take 6 or 7 or 8 like we do now. We just had enough to bowl. That was the minimum playing strength of the team, was 5. So, well, that was an easy decision. I had to go tell the tournament. I needed to go tell the tournament director that we're just, we're taking ourselves out of the tournament because obviously Steelsmith can't bowl. Well, I remember Steelsmith looked at me as he's laying on the ground there and he said, "You're not taking me out of this tournament. That's not happening. I'm not letting you down. I'm not letting your teammates down. I'm bowling. But Rick, you've got a broken toe." And he said, "I'll figure it out. Let me throw shots." So it's one of those tough decisions. He said, "Clean me up, bandage me up. Let's do that." So we did that. We cut out the end of his shoe, open air shoe, so in case he swole up, he wouldn't be against the shoe, but just the air, which is kind of weird. Loaded him up with a couple of ibuprofen and put him out on the lanes. I still remember that first shot. The lights came on. We're scoring now. The tournament started, and he threw his first shot, and all of his teammates are kind of, what's going to happen? Is he going to be able to keep his balance and stand up, or is he going to collapse again right at the foul line? Well, he got the shot off. He fell off to the right a little bit, and he went on to bowl that tournament, and he was picked as the most valuable player in the event. Such is the legend of this guy. It was one of the greatest examples to me of grit and determination and courage and selflessness and team play that we've ever had in the program. He's a special, special guy. We are so lucky he is the men's head coach currently. I'd like to say thanks, Rick, for everything you've done for Shocker Bowling. Our sport is like many other sports. It's surprisingly, it's not all that different, but some things are, obviously. We throw a 14 to 16 pound ball. We deliver it at 14 to 20 miles an hour on every shot. The length of tournament games could be 6 to 16 in a tournament weekend, with competition lasting 4 to 10 hours a day. That is a normal 2-day event, 4 to 10 hours each day, up to 20 hours of bowling. It requires accuracy, versatility. Like other sports, you think of golf a lot of times when you think of bowling. Golf is affected by weather conditions, by wind, the layout of the course, all of those things. Baseball pitchers, they adjust to wind conditions when they pitch to get balls over the plate, to throw strikes. But in our sport, we have a playing field. It's invisible. There's a thin, it's invisible, really. Yeah, it's a thin coating of oil on the surface of the lane. A coating of oil on the surface of the lane. Well, what happens? Every time a ball goes down the lane, it picks up some of that oil and takes it down the lane. So the lane is a liquid bowling environment that is constantly changing with every single shot that's thrown. Every delivery, every competitor changes the lanes. We start out on a pair of lanes. We may have a strategy to start out. We may play the lanes a certain way on that starting pair of lanes, and it changes right while we're bowling on it. So what are we adjusting? Alignment, releases, ball speeds, hand positions, bowling balls, all of those things are changing constantly to try to stay matched up to an ever-changing condition. So whatever you start out doing, you don't even end up doing in one game in the first hour of competition, much less the 10th hour of competition. Mental game. The mental game is kind of important in our game. Everything happens twice. You see what you want to do. You make all the decisions on speed and release and angle and ball, and then you visualize the path of that ball. Probably not a lot different than what a basketball player does when he sees the arc of the ball as it goes in the hoop. We all see that. We all see in bowling there is a path that the ball takes that you want it to do, a movement that it makes and goes through the pins, at least on first ball, to strike for a right-hander just right of the head pin. Virtually all sports have mental skills to aid performance. And bowling is similar to all of those. It's similar to sports that have breaks in competitive action. Tennis, gymnastics, what else? Golf, where you have, it's not continuous action, it's kind of anaerobic. You take a shot, go back and take another shot. For our sport, it's about 5 minutes between shots in a team play environment. What do you do with that time? Do you get frustrated? You overthink? Easy to do, isn't it, coaches? Every sport is easy to think, and that's a killer for athletic performance. Some of the skills we use: self-talk, affirmations, visualization, imagery, mindset control, alpha wave training. Yeah, alpha wave training. One more story here is from 1989. Coach Lewis and I were on the United States team, and it was the third year that Team USA for bowling was able to go to the United States Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. Rick Steelsmith was on the first team that went there, and we happened to be fortunate, made the team together. Very difficult process, very coincidental. We were both on the team. We're at the Olympic Training Center, and we had a new head coach, a brilliant guy by the name of Fred Borden, incredibly knowledgeable. And not only did we hear lectures from Fred, and we slept and ate bowling for a solid week and a half there, we basically got to hear from presenters from the USOTC staff. And one of those presenters was the head of the sports psychology department. It was a guy named Dr. Shane Murphy, who was Australian. He came in and delivered a wonderful speech. We just ate it up. It was wonderful learning about some of the techniques that the other Olympic sports use, all 41 other Olympic sports in the Olympic sport family. And it dawned on him at the end of that, we haven't, come to think of it, we haven't given you guys our battery of tests on the psychological skills profile that we give to all of the other Olympic sports. And he asked Coach Borden, would you like us to do that sometime you're here during the week? And he said, oh, absolutely. Our athletes would love to take that. So we did. A couple of days later, we took an afternoon. It took several hours, and we filled out all these tests about breathing and self-talk and imagery and relaxation and all these things. So a couple of days later, here comes Dr. Murphy in the back of another classroom session that Coach Borden's leading, and he rushes up to the front, pulls Coach Borden aside, whispers something in his ear. Coach Borden gets a big smile on his face. He said, Dr. Murphy, would you mind telling our athletes what you just told me? And he wasn't really prepared to do that, okay, because he wasn't planning on addressing us. So he kind of stammers and stutters, and he said, well, I got to tell you, I got to have a admission here to start with. I went back to my cohorts in the sports psychology department. He said, guess what? We're going to give the psychological skills profile to the U.S. bowlers. Guess what his sports psychologist friends and companions said? They started laughing. They started giggling. They bowling? Come on. They don't use any of this stuff we teach. Are you kidding me? And at that point, Dr. Murphy apologized to the head coach and to all of the team members on the U.S. team. And he said, guys, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Here's the truth. We tabulated the scores. You scored higher. These two teams, the women's teams and the men's team, scored higher than any sport in the 41 Olympic sports that we have. That means you use psychological skills more than any sport we have. Really? Basketball? Baseball? Swimming? Are you kidding? No. They thought it was a fluke. So the next year, 1990 and 1991, they did the same thing again with largely a different team. Hard to make the team 2 years in a row. Same results. And they said, Dr. Murphy said, okay, you have our respect. This is astonishing. We will work with you like no other, and in fact, we'll even learn from you if you'll let us. So that's a story about sports psychology and how important us knowingly or unknowingly working through elite levels of play, understanding the needs to be able to do some of the things that the sport was telling us to do. I want to remind everybody that, or at least inform everybody, that Kansas has a deep, rich bowling legacy. We have players all across the state that have medaled in international competition. There's 200 countries that compete in our sport across the world, and they've won medals, gold medals, all across the world. One player from Topeka, Kansas, some of you may have heard of, is our most famous professional bowler. Chris Barnes is an alumnus of Wichita State. Chris Barnes has won 37 PBA titles on the professional tour. Of course, Rick Steelsmith's done some amazing things. Also a girl named Karma Mason, who was in a 4-year career, 1975, bowled with Cindy on that national championship team. Sophomore year, she finished second. In 1977 and 78, she won back-to-back national championships with her teammates, 3 out of 4 national titles. So she's had just like a college career that no one in history has ever had. So we're very proud of Karma. I'm going to take it right to that point and say, I want to thank everybody for listening to me, even though I know you're waiting for the next presenter. And I am too, by the way. I am as well. So thanks to Jordan, to the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame for this humbling, fantastic honor. It's deeply, deeply appreciated. Thanks, everyone.
One more round of applause for GORDON VADAKIN.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony is made possible in part by Kansas State Bowling Proprietors,
Programming on Smoky Hills PBS is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from NextTech, providing the area with top-notch broadband, business, technology, and advertising solutions. NextTech proudly supports economic growth of rural communities.
It's all right here at Kansas Star Casino and Hotel, I-35, exit 33, Mulvane, Kansas.
We close it down tonight by heading back to Lawrence, Kansas and honoring a legendary Kansas Jayhawk head coach, Roy Williams. Now, I've been working with a script all night tonight with bullet points on Hall of Famers, and I could stick to the script that Jordan and his crew wrote for me, but most of you know Coach Williams in his time at KU had the winningest program in the 1990s, took the Jayhawks to 4 Final Fours, went on to win 3 national championships at North Carolina. Most folks know he's already in the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame and the College Basketball Hall of Fame. But as synonymous with his Hall of Fame status as a coach is his Hall of Fame status as a human being, as a mentor, a friend, a father figure to so many of the players and the managers and assistant coaches and staffers that he worked with over the course of his legendary career. And so I thought, rather than reading the script that was given to me, I would go straight to the source, his players, and ask them what it meant to them to play for Coach Williams. Now, the first guy I talked to was the shortest walk from my office down the hallway, my broadcast partner, Greg Gurley. I said, Greg, give me a line or two about Coach Williams. And he said, actually, I want you to ask the selection committee if Coach Williams going in means I can go in next year. So, Jim, I'm supposed to ask you to take a look at the 1990 Shawnee Mission South game-winning shot from the state playoffs. But he then went on to say that KU was so fortunate to have Coach Williams take over the program because he came in at a time where probation was looming over that first year, and the program could have gone one or two ways. But just a couple of years later, Coach Williams had Kansas competing for national championships, something they were in the mix for every single year, and that was Greg's big takeaway about Coach Williams. I then asked Greg's roommate, Rex Walters, to talk about Coach Williams. He said, "The good Lord blessed me with the best teacher, coach, mentor, and example a 20-year-old man could ever ask for." He says, "Congratulations, Coach Williams. I am so proud to call you my coach." I then talked to Steve Woodbury. Woodbury said, "Coach Williams is the perfect example of what a head coach should be to his players, both on and off the court." Alonzo Jameson, Zoe, he weighed in as well. He said, "Coach Williams is more than a coach. He is what I consider a true mentor to be, living life the right way with honor and integrity." A couple of former players turned assistant coaches also chimed in, Jared Hass and C.B. McGrath. Let's start with Coach Hass, now out at Stanford. He said, "The reason that I'm coaching today is to try to be like Coach Williams and impact my players in the way he impacted me." C.B. McGrath said this. He said, "Coach was the best. Gave us all a chance to live our dreams as Jayhawks. He treated us like sons. He was tough and he was intense, but he cared so much about our growth both on the court and off of it. He was a true father figure." Also talked to a couple of the recent Jayhawk stars under Roy Williams. Drew Gooden, a Hall of Fame inductee in 2021. He said, "Roy Williams wasn't just my coach at Kansas. He was an extension of my father. The work ethic and discipline he instilled in me was second to none. I'm extremely happy for you, Coach Williams. Congrats." And finally, I talked to Nick Collison as well. He said, "I love Roy Williams. He had a very positive influence on my life at a very important time for me, and the habits I learned from him at Kansas will continue to be valuable to me for the rest of my life." This is just a small sampling of the testimonies of what it was like to be coached by, taught by, loved by this man. Don't take my word for it. You can ask Brett Ballard. You can ask Wayne Simmons. You can ask Terry Nooner. He's here tonight as well. Every player, manager, staffer, to a man or woman would tell you what a legend this guy is as a person, in addition to what he did as a coach. So one more time, let's hear it for the Hall of Famer, Roy Williams.
I should just shut up and leave. Everybody be willing to do that. I thought about saying if somebody would like to take a break and stretch. I was afraid none of you would come back if I did that. So it's been a great evening. I'm very flattered to be here, and I mean that very sincerely. I'd like to congratulate the other inductees. This is a nice moment for coaches. It's a nice moment for athletes to have people talk about you and say good things and bring back memories. I love our old sod guy, George. I love you, son. You may be the only person in here older than me. Then I remembered Ron Slaymaker was here, and then that took care of that. I want to ask Jordan, a guy named Doug, was the head of the casino. Where's Doug? I really like you. I've lost my butt in the craps table since I got here. After this is over with, we're going back out there. Somebody said 1961. Was that the first one? Yeah. Okay. Ron Slaymaker and Jesse, they performed that night as well, so it's a good night. Jesse, you were good, son. The only thing is, let me beat you. I want to beat you a little bit. Let me see where I wrote this down. Wicked Wanda, honey, raise your hand. There you go. Wicked Wanda, I've been married 49 years and dated 5, so I got 54, so I beat your butt one time, boy. You know, this is a nice thing. I've got some great friends at these tables over here that cared about Roy Williams. It was tough a few years back when I left Kansas, and these people cared about Roy Williams, and that was important. And you know, you stand up here and you talk about my career. My talk's going to be pretty easy, really, because all I'm going to do is talk about the special people, my friends here at these tables. 3 former players, Wayne Simmons, Terry Nooner, Brett Ballard. They've seen me in good times, but they've seen me in some bad times too. But I love you, and that'll never, never change. You know, I have a Carolina blue tie on here, and it reminded me I started thinking about putting another tie on. But James Meeser was the chancellor at North Carolina when they hired me, and Dick Bedour was the athletic director. And so I do the press conference on April 14th in 2003, and they give me 2 ties to put on, and they were Carolina blue ties. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. That's the chancellor and the athletic director, and I hadn't even signed a contract at that point. I said no because the University of Kansas and the Jayhawk colors have been important to me, and they'll always be important to me. And so I decided tonight, instead of trying to suck up and putting the Kansas thing on, James Meeser said, it's okay, it's not immoral to love 2 institutions. And just think of this, I've coached at the University of North Carolina and the University of Kansas. God, what a lucky man I am. And you just think of that, that's pretty doggone good. So Carolina blue tie, that's where I worked the last, they paid me the last paycheck. Still, Jesse, they're still paying me, son. You know, I thought you were older than me. You're 2 years younger than me. Daggum, boy, that's good. I went to North Carolina as a part-time assistant in 1979. They paid me $2,700 for the year. And that's true, $2,700 for a year. So when I retired, the chancellor and the athletic director and fundraiser wanted me to keep doing some work for them. So I told them I was grossly overpaid the last time. So I wanted them to pay me $2,700 a month this time. So that's what I'm getting paid, and I haven't drawn 1 cent in a year and a half because it's not enough money to pay the insurance and the retirement thing. So even Wanda hadn't got his check. So it's been tough, but Jesse, that $5,000, we would do coaching for anything with it. I felt luckiest person alive because you know what I did? Every day I went to be a coach. I never worked a day in my entire life. Luke Bryan's a country singer. In the old days, I used to love soul music. My favorite song of all time is Otis Redding, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. And I loved the Michael Jackson. I used to drive when I was at Kansas, North Carolina. I'd drive to the games and I'd play music. I'd be by myself. One of the things I love is Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On. I'm not sure Marvin's thinking about the same thing I was talking about, but that's what I want to do. Let's get it on, boys. We're going to show up. I don't care how good you think you are. You better be ready. And this group, a couple of tables over here that I was talking about, there's 2 guys, Richard Conzum, Doug Vance. Would you 2 guys raise your hand? Come on, be proud. Raise your hand there. Okay, so the night I fly into the Kansas City airport to interview for the job, they cut my picture out of the North Carolina media guide so they knew who crap I was. So they picked me up. I'd been flying and traveling for about 12 hours, and I said, guys, I'm about to starve to death. And so we stopped at Hardee's on the turnpike going in. I knew I was really a strong candidate at that time. It got even better years later when Jerry Green was my assistant and was hired to be the coach at Oregon. When he went in to interview him, everybody he had warm-up suits, and he goes to his room, and he has crab claws and shrimp on ice in his room. I thought, by God, they would like him to be their coach. And to make matters worse, stress was pretty big on me at that moment, so I wasn't feeling great. And then the food poisoning I got from the meals that Doug and Richard provided for me. So they'll tell you right now, the day of the press conference and the whole bit, I spent the whole day puking. I'd go meet with the car dealer, and then I'd go puke. And then I'd meet with the local writers and the writers in the state, 7 of them, and then I'd go puke. And so I've always been flattered a great deal about being a coach, and especially 2 guys like Doug and Richard, the way you guys took care of me, boys. I love you, man. That's it. No, those guys at the table right there and all this groups, I tell you, Joni Stevens, Joni, wave her hand, honey. Joni Stevens was my secretary for 7 years. She put up with a lot. She had some illness in her family, and she quit working, and all of a sudden her husband got better, and she decided she wanted to come back to work. And Richard walks in and says, I've got somebody I want you to think about for the job. And I said, well, we've got about 4 or 5 people to interview, and who else? And he said, Johnny. And I said, just tell her the job's hers, and let's stop this interviewing crap. But so thank you for taking care of me for 7 years. I appreciate that a great deal. And as I said, I'm not going to talk about so many things I did. I want the people to understand that I did nothing. But boy, did my players play their butt off. And that's what it is. And every coach has said that in some way, shape, or form. But I'm not going to tell you. I mean, before I came to Kansas, I was a good little kid, and I was a decent basketball player, and went to North Carolina and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to talk about the 15 years at Kansas. And I think the first thing to do is really tell them how much I appreciated Gene Budig, our chancellor, and Bob Frederick, my AD. They hired me when no one wanted to hire me. Now, I'm telling you the gospel. Chancellor Budig entertained 3 alums the night before the press conference. And they went and told him, there's no way you're going to let Bob Frederick hire that blankety blank guy. I'm serious. And 3 very powerful Kansas people. And Chancellor Budig was about 5'6", 120, something like that. Didn't exactly scare you in a street fight. All of a sudden, those 3 guys were outside. And he was patting them on the back and thanking them for their support. And one of those 3 guys became a great friend of mine. And he said, that little blankety blank threw us out of the house and we didn't even know it. But he said, my athletic director is going to hire who he wants to have. And Bob Frederick hired me, and I was number 93 on the list, I'm pretty sure. But he was pretty pleased with what we did. And I appreciate what those guys did. Even Dr. Frederick, who was the finest gentleman I've ever known in my life. His wife said, you're not going to hire that no-name assistant coach from North Carolina. And he said, yes, I am. And so those 2 people right there, I appreciated them taking a chance. And they did. And I knew that if I did not succeed, it would be harmful to them. And that's part of the thing that drove me. But the biggest thing is I just wanted to do well. I wanted to compete. I heard Jesse and some of the guys talk about competing. I wanted to do that. But those 2 guys were the first ones. The next 4 guys, Jerry Green, Steve Robinson, Kevin Stallings, and Mark Turgeon. Turge, you probably remember Warford Turge being a great success here at Wichita State. That was my staff. Jerry Green was the most loyal friend I had in the whole world. He was my security blanket and one of the meanest suckers in the world. I didn't care who came at me with a machete or anything. Jerry Green was going to stand there. But those 4 guys were my first staff. They all left and took head coaching positions, and every one of them became a coach of the year in their own conference at least. So those 4 guys took care of me too. The third group is the best group, is my players. The first team, now just think about this. Kansas just won a national championship in 1988. Now Danny Manning and Chris Piper left, and they were pretty good. All right. Here comes Roy Williams, who had never been a head coach at the college level. I'd coached high school for 5 years. I was assistant football coach, golf coach, sponsored the junior senior prom. So if you can do that, you can do about anything. But I came in there, and these kids had won a national championship, and the first day of practice, they never questioned a thing. They gave me a chance. Milton Newton, Scooter Berry, those guys were seniors. Sean Alvarado was a senior. Kevin Pritchard, Mark Randall, Mike Maddox, Sean. All those guys, they gave me a chance. They didn't ask. When I asked them to do something, they just did it. And they did it to the best of their ability. And the first year was tough. The first year wasn't great. Started out 16-3, we lost 3 guys. We play Oklahoma, they're number 1 in the country. And we lose a game in double overtime, 81-80, I think. And the Kansas crowd in Allen Fieldhouse gave us a standing ovation. We had 8 guys that dressed out for the game. I'll never forget, a lot of guys, if you're coaching, you look at players and their eyes are big wide-eyed and they're looking at you like, put me in, coach. I'll never forget, we got into overtime, we had 2 guys foul out. Mark Randall got his 4th foul. And I looked down the bench, I'd taken a JV player and put his name in the book and had him dress out. And I looked down that bench, and that JV player saw me looking at him. I've never seen a guy faster dive under the bleachers than I've ever seen. He wanted no part of Stacey King and Mookie Blaylock, okay? But those players gave me a chance the first year. They tried to do what we asked them to do. And I've never forgotten that. Jeff Gellner, Mike Maddox. Had 3 guys that weren't eligible, Sean Tunstall, Malcolm Nash, and Alonzo Jameson. And those guys gave me everything they had. And the next year, we got some little help. We got Pekka Markkanen from Finland. I'd never seen him play in my life. But the NCAA gave us a penalty. We couldn't bring kids on campus for visits. But a friend of mine in Finland said, yeah, he'll help you, you'll love him. He was the best defensive center I ever coached. We only had him for 1 year. We also got a guy named Adonis Jordan, was the first high school prospect to believe in us and signed with us. But Adonis Jordan to me is one of the most important people in my entire basketball career, and he was extremely important to the University of Kansas. But those three guys came in, and so the first year we sort of meandered around, and we did okay. I walked through the gym in the fall of our second year, and Kevin Pritchard said, Coach, did you see what Inside Sports did? I said, what? I don't read the magazines. He said, no, Coach, they picked us 8th in the Big 8. They picked us last. I said, Kevin, that's right. There's 8, and it's 8 teams in the league. If they picked you 8, that's last. He was irate. So I called the guys together. I said, don't you worry. Don't look at the magazine stuff. Let's just do it between the lines. We're going to be really, really good. And we ended up winning 30 games that year and spent 13 weeks at first, second, and third in the country because those kids believed and tried to do exactly what we asked them to do. During that same time period, we're going through that problem with the not being able to bring guys on campus for visits. And we got 3 guys, Richard Scott, Steve Woodbury, and Patrick Ritchie, and they were great for us. They were great. They played in 2 Final Fours. Now, Patrick lived in right outside of Kansas City, and Wood was down here in Wichita. Richard Scott never seen the campus, but he agreed because his mother said, I want you to play for that guy. So those are the things that set everything in place for me to be up here tonight. It wasn't anything I did, but golly, I had good kids. I had players that everybody would love. As I said, the first year, the injuries hurt us a little bit, finished with 8 guys. University of Kansas, we gathered on the track, right off the track, which was inside Allen Fieldhouse, on the concrete, in the metal chairs, Friday night. And we watched the Hoosiers because we'd lost 5 games in a row. And the next week we came back and we watched Rocky III in the cold metal chairs because we'd lost 7 in a row. We ended up losing 8 in a row, but those kids kept playing. And I'm telling you, everybody that ever said anything about our coaching said, Roy, you can get those kids to pull the nails out of the floor. And I didn't do that because that's how badly they wanted to win. And they accepted Roy Williams. And there's no secret. We did okay at Kansas. We did okay at North Carolina. But God, I had some guys who played their tails off. And it's what I think about with this group right here. And those early groups, I mean, you think about it. Mark Randall. I think Mark Randall should be in this group right here. Mark Randall's first 2 years set out 1 year the injuries, and the other year barely played and was about to leave. And he gave us a chance. And he was 3-time all-conference and a great player and a #1 draft choice. And I think Mark Randall, Adonis Jordan, and people like that have got to be honored too because they really meant something to the University of Kansas basketball program. Because they believed in some dumb old guy that said, let's do it this way. They gave me a chance. And that really is what coaching's all about, is you want kids to give you a chance. And because I got the job because of Coach Smith and Dick Harp and Jerry Watt. Coach Smith was respected so much at Kansas. Coach Harp had played at Kansas, coached as assistant, and was a head coach. And Jerry Watt did about everything that's ever been done in the athletic world. And those 3 guys pushed the envelope, and then Bob Frederick and Chancellor Budick said, okay. But those are the guys that, other than the players, those are the guys that really made everything and made it possible. Because what I did is every day I went out there and tried to do my best, and the kids tried to do the same thing. And that's a neat deal. I mean, I'm stupid. I believe in the team more than anything. Just like I haven't played blackjack, roulette, slots. I'm not doing that. But I'm going to the craps table. You know why? Because it's a team game. Everybody's trying to pull for your team to win. I was at the craps table not too long ago, and a guy beside me is betting the don't pass line. That means he's betting against everybody else. I said, big fella, I'm coming after your butt. We're going to run you out of this game. I want you to understand, I don't appreciate you betting the don't pass line. You're hoping everybody else loses so you can win. As far as I'm concerned, we're going to beat the hell out of you. And the only thing I can tell you about that is that was a lot calmer and nicer than what I actually told him. He left. I won again, okay? But it's the team game. It's the reason I like to do. Randy Towner here is the best golf professional I've ever been around. Great, great friend. I used to say I liked a golf pro that would make me feel very comfortable. Randy put me in a coma for 30 years, all right? But Randy and I and 6 other guys go to Scotland. We're going to play golf. And I go inside at the Royal and Ancient at St. Andrews. And they said, Mr. Williams, we can't take all 8 of you. But we've got 4 of you that can play the old course, and the other 4 will have to play the new course. I said, all right, who's been chosen to play the old course and the new course? And they gave me that. I said, no. I said, we'll all play the new course. The new course is only 200 years old. Randy Towner would get outside, and he said, I told the guys, we're not going to play the old course. We're going over to the other place. He said, just for information, who was chosen to play the old course? And I said, me and you both. I said, but Randy, we're a team. He said, I don't really like those other guys that much. But some great things with those great players and get us through those early years. And then all of a sudden, in 93, we have Adonis Jordan and Rex Walters came along, lead us to a Final Four. 91, to get to our first Final Four, we beat the number 2, number 3, and number 4 ranked teams in the country to get to the national championship game. And we lose to Duke in the national championship game. I've never felt as bad in my life in the semifinals during coaching, because it's a game that Coach Smith got kicked out of the game at the end. The referee lost it. And he was ejected for no reason in my mind. And I was mad. And I was not mad about anything except for I knew that's all the press would want to talk about was Coach Smith getting ejected. And it would take something away from my players. And that really ticked me off. But we get back again, 93 this year. We play North Carolina again. They beat us that year. But we were good. And again, Steve Woodbury, Eric Pauly, Richard Scott, those guys. And then all of a sudden, Jock Vaughn, Scott Pollard, Rafe LaFrance, Paul Pierce, Jared Haas. To this day, I was put in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2007, and I apologize to that team because I never got that team to the Final Four. And that's the one thing that still sticks in my craw more than anything. But you talk about a group of guys. And again, that's where I was taken care of. I think right after that, then all of a sudden some other guys came along. Nick Collison, Kirk Heinrich, Drew Gooden. I came home to Wanda one night and I said, I may have to try pro coaching. And I was very fortunate during the 100 years that I coached. I had 14 different NBA teams talk to me about the head job. One guy said, Coach, don't you ever think about trying the highest level? I said, I'm already there, because I believe that from the bottom of my soul. I coached at Kansas and coached at North Carolina. I coached kids who wanted to be coached. So I did think I was at the highest level. But I was disappointed in some things that had gone on in recruiting, didn't like some things that happened. I went home and told Wanda, I said, if I'm going to stay in this stuff, I may have to go to the NBA, because I can't handle this. And then all of a sudden, as I said, Nick Collison, Kirk Heinrich, and Drew Gooden. They came along, and parents, all 3, 2 of them in the home, and then Drew's parents were split, but still very, very cooperative with each other, caring about their son. And it gave me renewed faith that I could stay in college basketball. I could find enough really good kids. And they were phenomenal. And they were the ones that really got us going there again. And Jeff Bosheeves just now became the new coach at Pittsburgh State. Thank you very much. You'll be very happy, because he can really do some great things and was willing to take any big shot and make any big shot. And not only that, I loved him as a guy too. But I think then there's another group that came along, Wayne Simeon, Keith Langford, Michael Lee, Aaron Miles. And that was another thing that gave me faith it could be done and had a little overlap. For me, it was Final Four in 2002. And I go down to Atlanta, and I started 3 point guards: Aaron Miles, Jeff Boschee, Kirk Heinrich, Drew Gooden, Nick Collison, had Wayne Simeon coming off the bench. And we were really good. We kicked Marquette like they've never been kicked. I helped Coach Dwayne Wade in one of the Olympics, and he wouldn't speak to me for the first week because we beat their butts by 30. That was his last college game, and I reminded him every damn day we walked through the lunch counter. But those guys, I think that another group that came along, and we lost to Maryland. And then the next year, Drew had gone. We go back to the Final Four again. And Wayne Simeon had torn his shoulder up, and he tried and tried and tried. And we lose the national championship game to Syracuse by 3. We had the last 2 shots to tie the game and missed both of them. But those guys were something else. Wayne, I'm not sure about this. It's the only stat I know I never get right because it's so painful. 12 of 31 from a free throw line in a national championship game, something like that. But you know what? They never lost my love for that team. And so what happens? A couple of weeks later, asked to come back home to the University of North Carolina. Bob Frederick, if he had still been the AD, it would have been extremely hard, and I don't think I would have ever left. But we'd changed some things in administration, and I'd promised Nick Collison that I would be there for his entire career, and Nick was graduating. And it seemed like all of a sudden when Coach Smith the first time said, "We want you, and this time we need you." And I was disappointed a little bit in things that had gone on in our administration, and I left and went to North Carolina. The other thing that could have changed, if I'd known how dirty I was going to feel. When I talked to my players and told them I was leaving, it's a thing I thought I should do. I thought it was the right thing to do, but I've never felt that dirty in my entire life. And those guys treat me the same way today if I'd stayed there with them. So as a coach, what else can you ask for? So for me, there's a lot of good things I said about my friends that are here, my family, Wicked Wanda, 49 years. I said that one night at a radio station. I think we were in Kansas at that time when I said it. She's done all right. She's accepted. Her email address is Wicked Wanda. 49 years next year, July 28th, will be 50 years that she's put up with me. Since I'm saying this in public, what a lucky, lucky man I am. If we didn't have on camera and everybody around here, I'd tell you, God, what a lucky woman she is. She's heard that so much too. But I would like to tell you there's 2 things that I want everybody to understand. Every coach that stands up here, every coach, bowler, every race car driver, I can't wait to see the little boy down the road. I can't wait to see that big fella. Everybody here is here because of other people. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I started to say this about music and I stopped. I like country music now. In my car, you can listen to soul music or you can listen to country. Luke Bryan's got a song called By Dirt. It was pretty good. I think it made #1 in the country. I never thought I'd like country music, but they have some great lyrics. Luke Bryan is what I should have said. Well, Luke Bryan, in that song, he's got a lyric, I'll paraphrase it, it said, "Find something you love to do and call it work." And that's what I did for 48 years. And that's pretty good, guys. And the other thing is I had, believe it or not, a writer sent me a present. And the present were golf balls, Titleist golf balls, which I like to play Titleist. And he brought them to him and said, "Open those up and look at them." I said, "Golf balls are round and white." And he said, "No, look at them." And so I did. Opened them up, and one of them had the number 9, some of them had the number 3, and some of them had the numbers 00. And it was a neat deal for me because I said, okay, we won 903 games, not 9,003 games. And he said, "No, that's not what it's for. 9 Final Fours, 3 national championships, and 00 regrets. That's what I would like to pledge to everybody in here for your entire life." This is extremely flattering, as I said. I think it's a great honor. I appreciate it. I apologize to everybody having to be here so daggum long. And we are coming to the craps table, so I like to put pressure on people, and I don't care who it is. Folks, the state of Kansas was great to Roy Williams. I'll always be born a Tar Heel, but I'll also be raised a Tar Heel and Jayhawk both. And I appreciate this place. I appreciate this honor. And if you guys will tell the other players, it's hard to say, hey, why don't you come see me being honored? That's hard. I told a bunch of my players, don't come. There are other things that we can do and we can have some fun with. I love you players more than you'll ever know. Thank you, folks. I see some folks back there from Arkansas. They're big KU people. Hey, this is a great deal. Thank you very much.
The 2022 Kansas Sports Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony is made possible in part by
Programming on Smoky Hills PBS is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from Nextech, providing the area with top-notch broadband, business, technology, and advertising solutions. Nextech proudly supports economic growth of rural communities.
Inductees, we have a charge for this evening. To the inductees, the members and board of trustees and directors and members of the selection committee have deemed you worthy of your induction into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. You now join 307 previously inducted members of this hallowed group. Through your participation in sports, you have brought pride and honor to yourself, your community, and the entire state of Kansas. You've gained the respect and admiration of Kansans, and your achievement both on and off the field of competition helped to build our state's lasting athletic heritage. To make certain the memory of your accomplishments endures as a lasting source of inspiration for future generations, the Board of Trustees and Directors now declare that you are officially inducted into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jim. One more time, the class of 2022, the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame.